you. This is Chad Boblett. I'm here in Miami, Florida at SmartHop's office. I am with the CEO of SmartHop, Garcia. Guillermo, you like to use, I like calling your last name. His last name is Garcia, first name is Guillermo. And I'm also with Spencer King, that has a background in insurance, does insurance with SmartHop, and we're going to talk about the bottom line, what affects motor carriers' bottom line. This will also be a good conversation for owner-operators as well. If you have questions, throw them in and we'll get to them in the comments later on. But we'll kick it off and start off with that. What affects drivers' bottom line? And I'll start it off by saying an owner-operator's bottom line is, I like to think of it in two different parts. To break down the bottom line, your cost. I mostly talk about rate per mile. Rate per mile is a whole lot more sexy, and it gets a lot of people's more attention about when you talk about how to maximize money and make more money. But the other thing that I don't talk about, but I like to do is just as well, is cost per mile. You know, I love making money and I hate giving it away. But I just don't talk about the cost per mile, but I keep up with it, and I aware of every dollar that leaves my pocket and goes into somebody else's pocket. So the two parts I like to break down cost per mile or cost is your fixed cost is fixed cost and your variable cost. Your variable cost is going to determine based on how many miles you drive and that sort of thing. Your fixed cost is going to be your insurance, truck payment, trailer payment. Those are like your load board subscription. Those are things that are going to be the same all year long. Of course, my highest fixed cost right now would be my truck payment. Truck payment, I'm paying probably $2,500-$2,600 a month for that. And trailer payment would be your second highest fixed cost. It's eliminated because I paid it off. And the third is the insurance, and this is where I'm not going to go down the list and start naming all of them, but because we got someone here with insurance, we can hit that one. But yeah, third would be the highest cost would be your insurance payment. Your highest variable cost is going to be by far your fuel, and then it goes on from there. But I'll pause right there and let y'all chime in if you want.
Yeah, no, it's been great talking to you, Chad, and really understanding based on your experience and based on the experience of many of the people that listen to you, and really understanding what are those things that you can control, what are those things that you need to be aware of, and what are those things that you cannot control. And so I'll be curious to know what's that thing that you believe today the market is really good. And we were talking a little bit a while ago about the spot market right now at the rates that they are. Are we making a good decision today? Are we thinking about when that spot market is not as good? What do you think, thinking of your bottom line, thinking of that fixed and variable that you're mentioning, but curious to know on the fixed, based on your experience, what are those things that you can do with your fixed costs to prepare for moments that might not be today's moment?
Well, to go along with what you're talking about is something we don't even have to. We all know that the spot market is a roller coaster. We've been on a really good high right now for a long time, and we could see this continuous climb of being really good market for 3 months on, and maybe even longer. But here's the thing that everybody needs to be concerned about that's in the news is the chip shortage. Someone was telling me how their truck was going to be down for 2 months because of a sensor to the DPF and about the chip shortage and how that's causing problems and trucks going down for a month to 2 months going down. Well, if you're buying a truck at today's price and your truck is going to be down because of a chip shortage because you can't get that chip, and it's down for that amount of time, you need to know what your fixed cost is. Your variable cost is pretty much, you can eliminate that because you're not moving the truck, but except the variable cost of what's going to take to get the truck fixed. and to get your truck going again. But you need to know what that cost is going to be, because every month your truck is down, you're going to have to cover that expense. Those chips, and it's some of the current events. A lot of those chips are made in Taiwan, and if you stay with the world, if you're keeping up with world news, China is really moving hard of taking over that prefecture of Taiwan. If that country gets into conflict with China, I mean, those are really way out there thinking. But the chip shortage could be a lot worse than what it is right now.
What else? And definitely the shortage. I've seen over and over people coming in and saying, "Hey, I can't find a trailer. I have my tractor. I can't find a trailer." But we have also some people telling us, "Well, you know what? I want to get in the industry. I think I can't get my truck and my trailer. Now I'm thinking about insurance, and insurance could be a blessing, but also could be a thing to put a lot of thought on beyond what the current state of the market is today." What's your take on what to do with insurance? I mean, what's critical for you to look at if you can get good insurance? What's good insurance for you beyond just the cost? What's good insurance for you?
Good insurance would be who I have now. It would be great. I'm with Great West. That's good insurance. But good insurance is the price. I mean, are you overpaying? A lot of that, and for someone getting into being a carrier, don't go with just your first estimate of whatever it is. Make sure you have several estimates. Pick between your several estimates. I could every year. I pretty much know come February when my insurance renews that Great West is who I'm currently with. They're going to offer me probably the best rate possible. And like clockwork, like every year, Northwest, I think it's what they're called, Northwest, Northern, something like that. They're going to come in and they're going to offer me something $600 cheaper for the entire year, but because I have a zero deductible with Great West, I'll continue to stay with Great West. That's
anyway. You raise a great point. Is relationships, especially with your insurer, are super important. And you've developed this relationship over the past 20 years. How do you think about insurance from the perspective of you are very price conscious when you're coming in? You know it's going to be like the third highest operating expense as the fixed costs, as you mentioned. We get a lot of drivers coming in who ask us about physical damage. When you recommend to new drivers coming in, they're looking at policies and they're looking at pricing and seeing what they can skate by with. What do you recommend to them when it comes to physical damage, yes or no?
About physical damage?
Coverage for physical damage. Liability coverage covers third parties. You've got your cargo insurance covering your cargo. But physical damage, oftentimes, it's my tractor. I know if I'm going to do the damage, maybe I'll just ride with it, or is it something?
Oh, I wouldn't even think. I would have never think of having less than what you really need.
Yeah.
I could see where some people, if they're driving, even with my old $15,000 Volvo, I had $15,000 worth of coverage on it. I would never think of doing anything less than that. And because here's something that brings up a good point that I just wrote about here recently when it comes to trailer insurance. My trailer, believe it or not, it's a 2016, the one I have now. I bought it brand new. It's a 2016, and when I get home from this trip, one of the things I need to do is probably raise the value of that trailer higher than what it is now. I think right now it's priced at $22,000 is what I have coverage for it. But it would cost me more than that to replace it if it were to be in a wreck.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it got stolen, it would cost me more than that. So in today's market.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too. Is for the cost of that additional insurance to raise that appraisal value, it is worth it. It's the cost of doing business, and it's something that we highly recommend, and it's something that we're looking at always in terms of talking to new drivers, to those that have been in business for a while. It's just always being aware of what your equipment is worth and making sure that you have the appropriate coverages.
I've never thought of it going up like that either. This would be the first time ever looking at it going up.
You know, I think I shared this with you, but when I moved to the U.S., I knew how to do trucking back in Venezuela, but I moved here, no social, no DOT record of any means. One of the first walls that I needed to jump was insurance. And not only that, imagine me deciding that I was going to base an over-the-road trucking company or MC or DOT in South Florida. What that means for insurance, what that means for loads, what that means for, pretty much everything. So I was day one in hell. Thinking that because I had experience, thinking that because I knew how to do trucking, thinking of, I think I have a good record. What I ended up finding was that the zip code that I was based on was a big piece for me not to be able to get insurance at the rate that I needed to get it. South Florida, crazy rates. I believe that the Bronx is also crazy for insurance. So I was being benchmarked by the rest of the population in that zip code area, or you name it. And so the only way that I was able to get into trucking in the US was going and run under FedEx. FedEx was already pre-negotiated the insurance. I didn't need to worry about that. Then again, I had my limitations, right? If you work under someone else's authority, yes, they say that you're independent, but you're really not, right? You can choose some loads here and there. So curious about those people that today might be running under someone's authority, might be thinking about, I'm a company driver, I wanna really jump into trucking. If we think about insurance and putting aside everything else, that trucking is very complex, but putting aside everything else, what would you recommend when you think about getting your own authority, if you had to advise about how to maximize insurance? And in my case was, the area that you're based is a factor. If you have a record or not is a factor. But curious to know your take on if there's something that someone that is coming in or wanting to, if you can recommend something for them to maximize their insurance experience.
Maximize insurance, which I don't know if that's a good way, but the way I look at it is, my audience, people that I work with a lot and try to help out the most is the brand new guys that are getting their authority. And if they do one-on-one with me, the first things I start asking them, well, are you ready to get your authority? And then before you go and start putting money toward getting your authority, you first need to find out if you're going to be able to afford insurance. Go out and get the estimates of what insurance is going to cost you to run your equipment, know how much your equipment's worth, have those numbers down. And something that's always different, and I never have the right answer for, is depending on what state they're from. I'm from Kentucky. It's almost like the middle of the range. I have like 25 that are more expensive than me and 24 that's less expensive than me. It's right there in the middle. But Florida's a bad one. Florida, God, man, you guys get killed with insurance. There's some places I've seen, Mississippi, maybe Missouri, places like that where it's going to be really dirt cheap. I just don't know the way the insurance calculates it and stuff. I'm not sure how they come up with those numbers, but yeah, that's really what I'm preaching about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's one of those that what we find in the market today is your zip code, where you're garaged, and where you're based out of is a predominant factor in terms of your pricing. And so, one thing that we always recommend is being cognizant of where you're based, and as soon as you get your DOT number and you've got your equipment, got 30 days and there's a mad rush, and it's making sure you're communicative and talking and finding an insurance agent that you trust. I know you've got great working relationships, and making sure that you're fully transparent about where you'll be so you can get the best guidance possible as to your total expected cost.
This conversation is not pre-rehearsed, so whenever you bring up something, I need to ask questions. Maybe I might learn something.
Yeah.
But you're sure about that 30 days thing?
Well,
I didn't know about the 30 days.
So traditionally with the DOT number, if you want to get up and running, the recommended pacing is have insurance within 30 days. Because when you've got equipment, granted you might not be running, you could be inactive, but when you get active status, traditionally within 30 days, you want to have insurance in place. Now
that was new to me. I always thought you had to have it before they would give you your authority. That must be something new.
You can get a DOT number, but you'll be listed as inactive. And then when you get over to active status, you got to have your insurance in place.
Okay.
And so what we traditionally say is you can have your DOT number, but you can't be running. And so make sure you're talking to finding an agent that you trust, making sure they know exactly what your timeline looks like, and you've got all the necessary information in place, because as we talked about, insurance is a very antiquated business, and it's one that we're hopeful will change in the next, call it 5 to 10 years. But they base it off of your past 12 months or and when you don't have a track record, makes it very difficult for them to price you other than where you're located.
For me, it's personal, because I got here and that hoop was a big hoop for me to jump. So for me, this topic touches a nerve, and one of the things that I think and that I want the industry to go to, or to change, or to evolve to, is to adapt a little bit. It seems like insurance and other products or services are pretty much the same, but talking specifically insurance, it seems like it has been done in the same way for many years. And when I met Spencer, I was blown away by where he comes from, his experience, which is not in trucking, and coming from the consumer and in another industry world. Would be curious to, for you, Spencer, to share a little bit more of what does insurance look like outside of trucking? What are those new things, innovative things that other industries are seeing that we might not be seeing in trucking?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's one that, I think, and when it comes to personal auto, you're starting to see some movement in a really interesting direction, which companies like Root Insurance or Metro Mile, they're pushing for what's called usage-based insurance. You only will get charged for your insurance when you're on the road, based on how many miles you're moving in any given month, and you're only paying for how you use your car. And so a big push, hopefully, in the next few years in trucking, you'll start to see in commercial auto new entrants to the market that hopefully are going to be pushing that you'll only pay for liability insurance when you're on the road. You won't pay for cargo insurance unless you've got cargo hooked up to in your trailer. And but it's very slow moving given how many losses the commercial auto market has seen within the over the road trucking industry.
My gosh, we need that so bad.
I was just about to say this is like Disneyland. It sounds like. Do you think that's possible? Do you think we will live through seeing something like what Spencer is saying?
Well, I think it's definitely possible. Why isn't it already like that? I have no clue. And the insurance needs more competition. Because I'm with Great West. Well, almost everybody that's been around that's got a good clean record, they're with Great West too. Or Northland. Some of the. But anyway, yeah, it's possible. That's the way insurance should be. Charge me based on how bad if I have drivers working for me, how bad their record is. And if the truck's not driving any miles, or the miles are real low on it, charge me based on that. Don't penalize me, because here's the way it plays out in commercial insurance. I'm sure you might be aware of this. Is whenever it comes time for me to renew my insurance, what I'm going to be told from my insurance agent is, And the insurance market is losing money. They say the same thing every year. The insurance market, all the insurance industry is losing money, so your insurance is going up. But I didn't drive like the rest of the people in the industry. I drove a whole lot less miles. I didn't bring in no claims. Most of my runs was automotive parts, which is that has low claims on that type of stuff. It was only me driving it, and anyway, they're not going to listen to that stuff. They're gonna charge me based upon the industry, not Chad Boblett.
It's the most frustrating experience with insurance, and it's one that, being in the industry, you see it firsthand, as Guillermo pointed out, right? I'm not coming from the trucking industry, and so for me, it was trying to figure out what's the lay of the land, what exists in the market today, and with the advent of ELDs, with the advent of front-facing cameras and now cab-facing cameras, I think we're slowly starting to get there, where in the next 2 years, you could see some exciting movement where you're going to see some options in the marketplace that allow for usage-based insurance when it comes to liability, cargo insurance on a per-load basis, and it will just be baked in to the very experience on the spot market of booking a load. Now, it's something that I know that in the industry today it scares a lot of the traditional insurers. But hopefully we'll be seeing some movement, and what I would say is more fair pricing and more fair coverages for owner-operators and drivers everywhere.
The company, Knight Swift, the trucking company, they own an insurance company that's supposed to be, it's going to have the face cameras, the cameras that face the driver. A lot of people they don't want to be a part of that or anything. But if it lowers my insurance, you can look at me all day long while I'm going down the road. I really don't care if I have to pay less.
So if this happens, and if it really the insurance company says, hey, front-facing, back-facing cameras, if I'm connected to your ELD, if you give me data, we will lower your insurance. Would you do it?
Hell yeah.
Guillermo, would you do it?
I will do it in a heartbeat.
I would do it. Absolutely. In Japan, they have insurance where the insurance based upon GPS, and it's incorporated in the. I've only seen this in passenger buses. I didn't see this in trucks, but the passenger bus cannot go any faster than what the GPS says the speed limit is for that road. And if they had that attached to the passenger buses, then the buses got cheaper insurance. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like, with where, how technologically advanced these tractors, these trucks are getting, the sensors that we talked about with the chip shortage, they're able to read everything under the sun, tire pressure, what's overheating, what's not, the speed of which, you're driving. And today insurance still goes, where are you based? How many miles do you drive on average? And that's it. And so hopefully we're going to be seeing some really positive movements that if you're open to the idea that your phone is already tracking your movements and you've got an ELD, you add a camera to that, and pretty soon hopefully the insurance industry will be rating just on how you drive, the lanes that you take, when you drive, and not on anybody else's record or the crashes that they have that are lowering the market.
There's a huge market for that.
Yeah.
Huge market to be able to, for venture capital companies are always looking to invest into something with the trucking industry. That's an area where they should be investing, looking to get into, is the insurance.
So I know we've dove deep on insurance and done it very quickly. What are some other fixed costs? So you were talking about your trailer, the appraisal value's gone up. We've got shortages in the market in terms of equipment, which is necessarily driving the prices up. What else are you seeing in terms of variable costs? There's only so much you can control there in terms of fuel pricing. In terms of fixed costs, what are you seeing in the marketplace? Is equipment shortage causing spikes that we really can't foresee or project out for the next 12 to 18 months?
Oh yeah, if you were to order a trailer or a new trailer, a new truck, you're 15 months out, and if you buy used, you're paying a good 50% more than what the price of it, what it normally goes for.
So what are your recommendations?
Or adding on drivers is a hard ordeal. Save what you have. Save what you have. Keep the maintenance up and keep it healthy. You might be in it for a while. You might be, even though you have the money to go buy and replace it with brand new equipment. We all should be loads of good money in our pocket that we're ready to go buy something. Hold on to it because you can't buy right now, and the next best thing is to hold on to that money and repair your truck when it does go down. Have stuff in backup. Filters, have that as a backup. Tires, if you have a place to store tires, have that as a backup. I was not a fan. Back with my old, I would say probably a decade ago when I first started driving with my own truck, I recapped tires, and I quit doing that because I didn't have very much luck with it. But I will now. I'll save the casing because I'm not sure how much of a shortage we're going to have in tires. So that's another thing. I've even been told certain brands of oil is starting to, you're not going to, the full, I like running full synthetic at 1030, you might see a shortage in that. So,
interesting. I didn't realize that.
Another thing you can do with your oil is not necessarily just because they tell you to change your oil. My truck is 75,000, a lot of people does 50,000 miles. Just because they tell you to change it at that time, you could actually test your oil. And maybe the only thing you need to do is replace the filters and not change the oil. The oil comes back clean.
Chad, I'm curious to know in this world where there's so much shortage across the board, we're seeing it. We're not seeing it in trailers. We're seeing it across the board. How open would you be? You're today here. Maybe next week you won't be on the road. How open are you to rent for a short time your asset, that asset that has a big value, that is sitting there? You're an owner-operator, you're on the road. I know that you care a lot about your asset and just talked about really making sure that you care about your asset, but how open are you going into this next phase of really sharing that idle time with your assets?
You're asking the wrong person. 'Cause I'm very protective over my stuff. But I mean, if I was facing
if someone had an idle asset, what would you recommend them to do?
If I was in a position, if we talk, if I was in a position where I could not move my truck and I knew renting it, if I knew who I was going to be renting it to, and it was going to be that driver, I got some friends that if their trailer went down and they need an extra trailer, I would definitely rent it to them. But recently Amazon has asked what my rent would be on my trailer. They would take it and they would give it to whoever showed up and needed the trailer. You can do something like that with Ryder. That's too much out of this. If it was an old trailer, my old trailer, 2016. The old one was 2006. That trailer, I would give it up in a heartbeat. Yeah, rent it. Okay, come back broken. It didn't cost me that much. But if it's your only trailer, then I'm going to be skeptical about it. Someone that has a truck down and they have no use for their trailer and their truck's going to be down for a month. Yeah, look for someone that wants to that you can rent it to. I say that you trust. There's some good money to be made doing that.
Is there a vetting process that you would recommend?
Well, I mean, for me, on my new trailer, it would be someone that I have to know. That would be my vetting. I would have to know that person, and by knowing that person, I probably know what kind of driver they are.
So you're not the type of person that would go into an open market.
No, right, exactly. Unless it was an old trailer, an open marketplace like Ryder or Amazon, these other rental companies that are looking for trailers for the holidays that are coming up, their criteria, they don't want an old trailer. They want something 2008 or newer.
Okay.
And I would not do that. I'm just not a rich person. I don't have a lot of money. Unless you look at my Bitcoin account. But I'm very protective over my stuff. I know how my stuff's been treated. You look at some of these guys, the way they drive trucks and the stuff they put these trailers through. My trailer doesn't get done like that.
It sounds a lot like an Airbnb. Would you put your house up for an Airbnb? You want to know who's coming in and renting it. So that makes sense.
Yes.
And thinking about the flip side, that the person that doesn't have that trailer, that is looking to I mean, at least until if that trailer comes in 8 months, 10 months, or whatever, if that trailer comes in, um, what would you say is important for them to look into that trailer? I can think of one is really like the inside of the trailer, thinking about brokers and thinking about the requirements, and if you're going to have more trouble with that trailer than what you're going to earn, because you know that coming in with a very old, not maintained trailer could hurt your business even more than it can benefit. But is there something that you can think of when you are out, like inspecting an asset, that is important?
Well, a lot of guys get their authority. Our Facebook group that we're live with right now, Rate from Out Masters, it's notorious for encouraging people to get their authority, I mean, we preach it a lot, and and it doesn't take long for people to get the motivation to go get it. The thing that I fear, that I like to express with people, is you need to be able to have access to a trailer. Don't jump into this thinking you're going to be able to do power only, where you go and move other company trailers and make it doing this. I would say 50% of the time, I move someone else's trailer, but I would not rely on moving someone else's trailer. And going back to your question, the reason why I bring this up is because when you start relying on other people's trailers and you get desperate to use another company's trailer, CR England, they're notorious for letting you borrow their trailers. They'll give you a trailer number, they'll give you the 6-digit serial number, and they'll send you to a yard that has like 800 trailers, and you have to go down row after row, driving your truck, reading numbers on trailers until you find your trailer. And then I've just seen it where people go through this ordeal and they call CR England up and say, oh, the trailer wasn't here, or they'll call whatever company it is, not just CR England. Oh, the trailer's not here, what should I do now? Then they'll give them another trailer number and they have to start to repeat the whole process. And then when they get the trailer, they realize, well, I have to go get the trailer fixed. There's an air leak, lights don't work. Another complaint that I heard about was the trailer was tore all the hell inside, had grease on the walls. There was chains with grease on it laying on the floor. Well, who wants to mess with all that, just to go pick up a load? I mean, it was just a nightmare. And I had a friend that got put in a situation where, he was like one of the first people that I was trying to mentor, and he saw that I bought a truck and I got a trailer, and he saw that you could make money doing power only. He thought he was going to be able to run his business off that. And it was like every trailer he would get his hands on would lead him to a dead end until it finally took him out. And so, yeah, as good as power only is, and as much as I like talking about it, there's also the con to it. The con is that it could put you out of business. With that being said, I do know people that have run power only for years and they make it work. I don't feel like we're there yet to be able to say power only is the way to go.
Right, and when you run power only, and this is for also for people that might think power only or not, but when you think about power only as relying only your entire business in power only, it seems like up front you have less costs, less fixed costs, because you don't have the trailer, because you don't need to care about maybe getting the load. Maybe you're running power only for only one company. Is it worth running a power only, or would you think that really going through your structure and going through having your own trailer, looking for your loads and having your own business, can you tell a little bit about the difference between a power only bottom line structure and what are the benefits of power only versus being on your own and maybe higher cost, but can bring other benefits?
The more independent you are, the more money you're going to make, the more freedom you're going to have. Okay, you have a truck you can lease on to someone. You now have more freedom than the company driver that drives someone else's truck. You're leased onto someone, and you pull their trailers. Then you get your own trailer. Now you don't pull their trailers. You have your own trailer, you have your own truck. But when you get your authority, you can do power only, but you're still a little bit dependent on other people and their trailers. But once you have your authority, you have your own truck, and you have your own trailer, you're going to be able to make a lot more money, a whole lot more say-so about what you do. Someone that doesn't have a trailer, they're going to be, there's two markets when it comes to power only. I've mentioned this before in the group. And there's the one market where a broker absolutely needs you to pull a loaded trailer. They have to have you to go and pull their loaded trailer. And then there's the other market where you're someone that doesn't have a trailer, and you're desperate for them to give you a trailer, and you'll take whatever rate you can get. Whereas I don't care whether you give me your trailer or not, because I have a trailer sitting here. I'm going to get paid a lot bit different. I've seen that from day one. The reason why I do 50%, I would say over 50% of my loads is pulling someone else's trailer, is because those loads pay better than I could if I went and had my own trailer and went and got loaded up. Right now, here's another thing is whenever you start hearing about these big mega companies shortage of drivers, that means they have a bunch of trailers that they can't get moved, and they'll pay big money to get those trailers moved. It's one of those things. There was one time the company just got bought by another company, AAA Cooper. This is like the first time I ever mentioned it. But I made a crazy amount of money with AAA Cooper moving loaded trailers because they didn't have enough drivers to pull their stuff, and I got in good with them.
But doesn't sound it sounds like if you do both, like in a hybrid world,
yes, both.
Where you have your trailer sitting down, you're paying for that insurance, you're paying for that trailer, you're paying the bank to have that trailer, but then you're doing power only. It seems like you have a double cost around.
It's kind of like having a flatbed and having a dry van, except you don't have a flatbed. You have a dry van. It's like having two trailers. You have two options. Whenever I go to look for a load, I'm looking for dry van and power only. I have two searches going on. And I only do this usually when I'm home, but when I was in California a couple of years ago during Christmas time, I did a lot of power only too as well. I hid my trailer at this soccer field, but I just left it there, locked it up, and it was still there like a couple of weeks later when I went to California and picked it up. But I got to run Amazon trailers. Anyway, so it's like having two trailers, and so why wouldn't I? And if I had a flatbed and power and I have a truck and a dry van, then it'd be like having three trailers. You get the option to grab the best thing that's out there.
That negotiating power is amazing.
Oh yeah, and you're gonna get. I've gotten calls to pull a reefer. The truck got towed in. The truck and I don't mess with reefers. That's one trailer that I will not mess with that much when it comes to power only. But I took a reefer, like literally from the tow yard. The truck had to get towed in. There was nothing wrong with the reefer, and took it to a Walmart distribution center, like 5 miles down the road. It was that close, and then docked it in, got offloaded. And this is 5 miles. I had to go down. It was 60 miles to go get it, and 60 miles back home, $1,200. And it was like an emergency situation to help out the broker. Let me add to that. We mentioned a lot about insurance. When you do get into power only, you do need to have non-owned trailer interchange insurance. I got the Amazon requirement, which is they're a little bit excessive in what they require, but every now and then I do pull their trailers, so I got their required list.
And that's something I would just add is making sure you're talking to your agent about your business and understanding exactly what loads you're carrying, so that way they can ensure that you have the proper coverage in place. So that way, if there is an issue, you'll be completely covered.
I think my for the first couple of years, and before I ever did Amazon, I did 20,000 non-owned trailer insurance coverage, and most brokers use that, and it only raised it up for the year $500 to $600. Wasn't that much at all.
Yeah, you end up covering it. Pays for itself very easily. So
with Great West, and this might be with other companies as well, if the trailer is empty, like a moving type of van trailer, I took it one time, like one of those FedEx looking trailers. It was the trailer was the cargo, so there was a situation there where I didn't have to have insurance for it because the trailer was considered cargo.
Yep.
Spencer, you have been following this new bill that is at least in the works to go through the House and the Senate. What's at stake for insurance in trucking if that were to pass?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that we're paying a lot of attention to, where as we've been talking about during this last hour, insurance is one of the largest operating expenses for our drivers on the road. And right now, the federal mandatory minimum limits are $750,000, but generally we recommend $1 million limit, and this bill is proposing to bump that up to $2 million in liability coverage, which, as you can imagine, is putting a lot of fear in a lot of drivers everywhere, just because that the additional costs that you would enforce necessarily, right, is taking more money out of the paycheck on a load-to-load basis of these drivers. And so right now it's in the House. It hasn't been voted on, but it's looking like it will come down the pipeline. So it's something that we'd absolutely recommend that you're paying attention to, because when it goes into effect, you will have a federally required mandate to increase your insurance limits and to be able to show that to the necessary regulators. So talk to your insurance agent about that, what that means for you. And what I'd honestly recommend is if you reach out to them and say, hey, look, I want to know what it would look like in terms of pricing. Can you give me an indication? An indication is all you need. So that way you can budget for this should the infrastructure bill pass. Now, we don't know if it's going to pass the House, but if it does, you can expect your insurance rates necessarily to go up when you add an additional $1 million in limit. So something we want you to pay attention to.
Chad, is this in the conversation of your group? So is this a concern? I mean, do you think this will go into effect? Do you think this will pass and materialize?
The question that comes up occasionally, will it get passed or not? I think it's a matter of, it's one of those things, it's been talked about for years. I mean, we've been talking about this in trucking for many years. So I think it's going to be like the ELD thing. 10 years ago when you talked about the ELD, it was, 8 years ago, and you could say, ELD is going to happen, you just don't know when it's going to happen. Well, this insurance thing it's going to happen. It might be this time, and if it doesn't happen this time, it will happen. It's just a matter of when it will happen. How it will affect rates, or how it will affect how much you have to pay for insurance, that I'm not sure about, because if you add like an extra, I had $100,000 in cargo. If I add another extra $100,000 in cargo, it doesn't raise it up that much. I don't know for me, it doesn't seem like it doesn't raise it up that much. It's not like your price is going to double, but it is going to go up. And if you're already really high, or if you're looking to get into trucking, it could be one more. Insurance is the one thing that keeps people from getting into their authority. Right. Most of the time, someone will say, "I got real like I was in the Marine Corps for 10 years." A lot of people say, "Well, I started going to the Marine Corps until they told me I had to run 3 miles." I started to get my authority until they told me how much insurance costs.
It's a precluding factor for a lot of these drivers, and it's something that, as you rightly point out, $1 million, what you're paying for today. When you add an additional $1 million, it won't necessarily double your pricing. But it's important to note is the market is hardening, and as you pointed out, you could have a clean record, but as long as the insurance companies are continuing to lose money on this, you can expect rates to go up. We have insurance carriers that are pulling out of the market. They will not write over-the-road trucking anymore, and so as you get fewer and fewer parties that are willing to write insurance, you can also expect rates to go up as well. So
I didn't think of that. That would be a big factor. I've seen that too, where insurance companies has fallen out or get more restrictive on what areas they'll cover, who they'll cover, how many trucks they have to have in order for them to cover. They get more restrictive. I've seen that.
You're starting to get more and more insurance carriers as well that say you're not allowed to grow. And when would you ever imagine a business that says you come in and say, I'm happy you're doing better, we don't want to write your insurance? And so it's something that we always just recommend making sure you're fully knowledgeable, you're talking to your insurance agent. They're there to support you. Ask as many questions as you can about what's going on in the marketplace today, and ensure that you're prepared for, push come to shove. If rates go up, if you're in a state that no one wants to write anymore, you're planning your business accordingly, because you can't survive without insurance, and unfortunately, it's the name of the game.
How quickly do you think brokers will adapt to a new rate, if that were to happen? If truckers were to need to increase their insurance coverage and start to pay more, so your bottom line now is higher, how quickly do you think the market adapts and the brokers adapt their rates to help you cover for that?
My prediction, it would be very slow. And here's the reason why. Let's say January 1, everybody's insurance is going to go, instead of having $1 million liability, it's going to be $2 million liability. Okay, well, we know everybody's insurance is going to go up something January 1 to cover that extra coverage. That does not mean January 1, when that happens, all brokers are going to start paying extra. That will not happen. That will not happen. That is one of those things. It's one of the things I hate. Anytime an expense like that hits truck drivers, hits the carrier, the people that run the spot market, it's slow. It's slow to make its way into getting that extra, recouping that loss from a broker. Having ELD, that was an expense. It didn't mean rates went up. Rates went up because they lost hours. That happened, but it wasn't because of the expense of the ELD. It's slow to hit. What would happen that would help recoup the loss of your insurance going up would be drivers exiting.
Yeah.
It would be if drivers start exiting, they would go to lease on to other companies, or they'd get rid of their truck and be company drivers again. You would see that type of loss opening up the spot market to more loads with fewer drivers.
Yeah, I can say, I've had some conversations with freight brokers, and that is a concern of theirs, right? Which is, if you push drivers out of the market, you might see the resultant rates go up, but it's only if there's a driver shortage, supply and demand. So I think that analysis makes a lot of sense.
As an owner-operator or company driver, how do you prepare for that? How do you go about that if you know that that's happening? Because you're going to see some bad months. You're going to be paying more. You're going to probably be earning the same. Is there something, or you're?
Yeah, you can protest it. You can go to Washington D.C. You can call your senators. You can do that stuff. But some of that stuff might work this year. It's going to work every year. Eventually, it's going to happen. I don't know how you prepare for it. Get good rates now.
Yeah.
This ain't a business where I made a little extra money today, I don't have to work tomorrow. No, you need to make as much money as you possibly can what time you're in this business, because if you might need that expense later on. That money might.
But one thing that you're not saying is, yes, you need to make as much money, but the other side is, yes, you need to save that money.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't spend that money. Chad, thank you so much. This
we didn't get rained on this time. If y'all remember watching the last video me and Guillermo did, we went through a monsoon at a truck stop, and we offered $100 if anybody could find us at the truck, what rest area we were at. Nobody found us. I don't think they would have got out of the truck and come and seen us.
We would have not been able to just go out of that place just to give the $100.
He took a picture of his socks at the airport. He flew into Lexington. I picked him up in the truck. He took a picture of his socks and said, "I had to buy extra socks because his feet was wet."
The only ones that I could find was like avocado plain socks.
Yeah, like some girly looking socks, like Santa Claus on it or something.
Amazing. Well, Chad, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
Great to meet you.
Thanks everyone for joining.
I'll see y'all later.